Hey YouTube, Amanda here on behalf of Core TCG, and it's been so hectic for this holiday season, so I'm here to update you guys on the latest news in the TCG realm for Yu-Gi-Oh! First off, for those of you who don't already know, this has been circulating around a lot during November and December, the Singan ruling with Transmigration Prophecy. For those of you who don't know, I'm going to use two scenarios. The first scenario is Singan and De Crow. Let's say you activate enemy controller, attributing a Singan, targeting your opponent's monsters to take control of, and your opponent chains De Crow. Now, let's take that scenario, but also use Transmigration Prophecy in place of De Crow. So you activate enemy controller, attributing Singan as your cost, targeting your opponent's monster, and then your opponent trains Transmigration Prophecy and targets that Singan. So in the scenario with Singan and De Crow, Chainlink 1 is enemy controller. It pays its cost, so Singan goes to the grave first. It doesn't take control of the monster yet. And then Chainlink 2 is De Crow, targeting Singan to banish it. So then Singan gets banished when the chain resolves backwards, and then you take control of your opponent's monster. And then a new chain forms. Singan takes Chainlink 1, and then it activates to search a monster 1500 or less from deck. Now in the Transmigration scenario, what happens is Singan gets tributed by Econ, then your opponent chains Transmigration, targeting that Singan. That Singan gets shuffled back to deck on resolution if there isn't further chains made in the link. And then that enemy controller resolves, taking control of the opponent's monster. Now this is where the Singan would trigger on a new chain link, just like in the De Crow scenario, except Transmigration Prophecy is putting Singan back to deck, and the deck is not public knowledge. So when Singan goes to the Banished because of De Crow, you still get its effect because it's in a public knowledge area, but because the Singan's going back to deck in this scenario, you don't. The same with Dandelion, the same with Reborn Tengu. If those are put back to deck, and before they can actually start a new train and trigger, then they can no longer do so. Only cards that specifically state that they're capable of doing so can. So Gladiator Beasts, of course, they put themselves back to deck as their cost, but their effects will still trigger and resolve, and so on and so forth. But as far as these go, they cannot. So, if you didn't know that, I hope that didn't confuse you. That's just how it's ruled at events. So, Singan, Transmigration Prophecy, or anything that returns cards to the deck that normally would trigger, even if they're mandatory, will no longer trigger if you can put them back to deck before they form a chain. Now that that's been explained, and hopefully I didn't confuse anyone who didn't already know this information, Fire Fists and Fire Kings. And the decks are already looking so good, Fire Fists being a little more control-oriented, while Fire Kings can be very explosive, and the decks also, being two separate archetypes, can still actually have synergy with each other, some of their cards do. And of course, the card everyone is looking forward to, Breakthrough Skill. So Cosmo Blazer is actually available for pre-order on the Core TCG website for $59.99, for those of you who are interested. And anybody placing an order of $20 or more, if you leave a note in the description box when you're checking out, the little note area, you can ask for one of these score pads, and if you ask for one of these score pads in the checkout box, we will be sending those to you. So if you want a free High Priestess score pad, you can have one of those. And of course, as always, there's going to be a coupon code, and this coupon code is New Year 2013. If you enter this when you're checking out, if you're purchasing Yu-Gi-Oh! Singles, you get 10% back in store credit for those Yu-Gi-Oh! Singles. So that's always cool as well, because you can build up store credit and then purchase whatever you want. My name's Amanda. I'll be seeing you guys next week. Take care.